The Last of Us Part 2 is one of the most difficult platinums I've ever tried to earn, and that has absolutely nothing to do with the actual gameplay. Sure, there's permadeath and there's grounded mode, but the ability to activate permadeath chapter by chapter and a generous buffet of accessibility options, the difficulty is really more psychological than mechanical. No, what made this platinum tough was the sheer emotional endurance required. This game is relentlessly bleak. I couldn't play it for more than a few hours at a time without needing to go lie down, stare at the ceiling, and just question what is the point of all this. The few tender character moments felt less like story development and more like bait dangled by writers hiding in the bushes, just itching to rip away that fleeting joy as quickly as possible. And the flashbacks, oh my god, the flashbacks. Every time the story starts to build momentum, boom, you're yanked back into another slow walking memory simulator. Like, I came into this expecting a survival game, and I was given a nested series of tragic TED Talks. Now look, to be clear, this was my personal experience. If you loved the game and cried through every flashback while clutching a guitar, I respect that. But somewhere around the halfway mark there, the sadness looped so far around that it stopped being tragic for me and just started feeling absurd. Like, if I don't laugh at how heavy-handed all this is, the game will find a way to reach through the screen and beat me over the head with a melancholic acoustic cover of my will to live. So, with all of that said, grab yourself a bevy and strap in for a nihilism-fueled adventure through The Last of Us Part 2 to grab the Platinum Trophy and 100%. Now, much like the remastered version of Last of Us Part 1, Part 2 here comes with a very straightforward trophy list. If you're just here for the Platinum, great, you won't need to do anything too wild. But if you're playing on PS5, you get the added bonus of several extra DLC trophies. And if you're anything like me, you're going to go for those because
it's free real estate.
So we're going to have to beat the game on Grounded, the highest difficulty, and also survive a run on permadeath mode. As mentioned before, the devs must have realised nobody's got the emotional bandwidth to play this entire game with one life, so you can do permadeath chapter by chapter. Now, I split the suffering like a sane person. We started off with permadeath on easy mode for the first playthrough, and left grounded for New Game Plus. I strongly recommend this approach because it will maximise your chance of retaining at least some will to live. Now, the game kicks off with Joel recapping the events of the first game like he's reading his own eulogy. And before long, we're tossed into the beautiful, scenic haven of Jackson. Life here is almost normal. Chores, flirting, and awkward breakfast conversations about traumatic mass murder. We meet Jesse and Dina, the latter of whom Ellie is entangled with in a love triangle, because apparently a revenge story set in a zombie apocalypse just isn't spicy enough unless somebody's awkwardly third-wheeling. Soon enough, we meet Abby, possibly the most polarizing character in gaming history, and a certified golf club enthusiast. She rolls into Jackson with her own entourage, including Owen and Mel, who are part of another love triangle. Because why just have one emotionally complicated relationship when you can stack them like nesting dolls full of bad decisions? Meanwhile, Ellie and Dina are off riding horses, collecting some of the 286 collectibles strewn across the game, stabbing the infected in the neck, and generally vibing until, surprise, we are ripped back to Abby, who is now luring Joel and Tommy back to a surprise party with very questionable party favours. A quick zip back to Ellie and Dina, and we get a very brief intermission of post-weed hookup awkwardness and a lovely 60 seconds of love triangle drama before, snap, we are back to Abby again. Now, if you're feeling whiplash from the character swapping and relentless timeline juggling, congratulations, you've just survived the first 45 minutes of the game. So, look, most of you probably know what happens next. Abby convinces Joel to dust off his long-abandoned dancing career, much to Ellie's frustration, and everyone encourages him to get down.
Get up! Joel, fucking get up! Please stop! You're gonna fucking die!
We now get about 15 minutes of Jackson residents grieving Joel's sudden departure to a Bollywood circuit before Tommy, clearly inspired by his favourite Meg Ryan revenge flick, bolts off to Seattle alone. Ellie and Dina follow, conveniently triggering our first trophy along the way. Then comes our first real permadeath obstacle. We die to a ladder, because Ellie is physically incapable of climbing down like a human. This sets us back 9 minutes, which, spoiler alert, we are going to be beating later. Once we successfully navigate the game's most dangerous obstacle, that being gravity, we hit Seattle proper and enter a semi-open world area. Alright, look, I'll admit this area is gorgeous, but it also feels like the devs went, what if we just dropped the story for 45 minutes and made Ellie look for gas? So we spend a solid chunk of time wandering through coffee shops, bank vaults, and record stores in search of sweet, sweet petrol. After a round of post-apocalyptic sightseeing, we are awarded with the aptly named Sightseer Trophy. And with the gasoline in tow, we can finally power up the gate that is hiding the plot behind it. We now head to the location where Abby's supposedly hiding. We warm up some of the residents of this hotel, and we find out that Abby, shockingly, is nowhere to be found. But we do meet plenty of new NPCs who are all very eager to die in creative ways. A few trophies later, we encounter the bane of my permadeath run. A claymore that Ellie decided to jump directly into.
Hey! What are you doing? No! No! No!
When we get all the way back here, we do get some revenge on the malicious explosives, and I'm gonna skip over the pretty much nothing that happens for the next few hours, and get to the end of the day where Ellie and Dina find some shelter to end their first day in beautiful Seattle. Almost. Here we get met with the first of many, many expedition dump flashbacks that the game throws at you. Now, I've mentioned previously my thoughts on these types of sections, but their presence in this game is exacerbated by their frequency, their tendency to pop up every single time the story starts to get interesting, and the fact that they turn a survival action game into a 15 to 45 minute interactive cutscene. Like, this first one, for instance, it is a 30-minute sequence that shows Joel and Ellie care about each other. That's it. We took a half-hour detour from the compelling modern-day story to rehash the central theme of the first game. And look, personally, it didn't need to take that long, nor did it need to be done in the form of a slow-walking simulator. Anyway, back in the saddle of Ellie's modern-day story, and we've received news that Tommy might be in a residential area called Hillcrest. He of course isn't there, but our visit does allow us to restore the integrity of our triangle.
A shape that fits all other shapes inside of it.
No, it's true.
And because we've been playing for around an hour at this point, we cop one of these cheeky little fellas.
Personally, of the whole 3 weeks earlier teaser thing, I feel like, we should start our stories where they begin. You like that? You want me to cut to 3 weeks earlier when you were alive?
When we climb out of our second jaunt into flashback purgatory, we follow Ellie chasing yet another lead to a potential Abby location. We make our way downtown, running into yet another faction of genocidal humans to slaughter, before getting to the hospital to meet Nora, who Ellie gently coerces into telling us where Abby is. And because at this point we'd been able to selfishly enjoy 2 hours of modern day gameplay, the story editor gracefully corrects that egregious error. We jog on through this pacing monstrosity before returning to the modern day story for some more love triangle fun. You see, it turns out that Dina is pregnant. Because a love triangle set in the middle of a revenge story in a post-apocalyptic zombie-filled world isn't interesting enough, the other woman has to be pregnant. Jesse and Ellie set off to find Tommy, and they of course run into multiple combat encounters along the way because this game can't decide if it's a TV show or a video game. We part ways with Jesse, who goes to find Tommy because Ellie decides it's far more important to go after Abby. Side note, why does everyone's name end in a vowel? Ellie murders her way to a boat, and we've got some serious boat-related travel ahead. This lovely gameplay section consists of Ellie driving a boat, stopping to do video game stuff at arbitrary gates, driving the boat, stopping to do more video game stuff before driving the boat again. This is a 30-minute segment where you're just slowly driving a boat towards Abby. Like, halfway through this, I just expected Ellie to pull out a fishing rod and start casting. Actually, I might have loved that. Fishing minigames are awesome. We finally arrive at the aquarium where Abby definitely is, to find the other two members of Abby's competing love triangle, when a scuffle breaks out and we have a major revelation. Now, you see, having one love triangle set within a revenge story set within a post-apocalyptic zombie setting where the other woman is pregnant isn't interesting enough, because we want to have two of those exact scenarios. It's compelling writing, just stick with it. After a long day of slaughter, Ellie gets back to the theatre to find Jesse has found Tommy while Deanie was sleeping before we're intruded on by Abby, and then the game hits you with this.
Switching sides.
So, here we are greeted to a flashback within a flashback. Because those 3 days we've spent, we get to replay as Abby. And I know what you're thinking. If we're playing the 3 days again as a flashback, does that mean we won't get these super engaging flashbacks occurring throughout it? And to that I say, don't you worry your hot little lips, my beautiful babies, because we're still going to get flashbacks within our flashback. Before we can get to that though, we do have to get through our first dose of Flashception, where we meet Abby's dad. Do you recognize him? Alrighty, back to day one again, because nobody ever told the writers of this game that time is usually linear. We find a new Abby-specific type of collectible and settle in for 3 days in Seattle, Abby Edition.
We're going to the front. Come on.
Okay, we spend day one fighting a bunch of Seraphites, getting to a WLF compound, meeting Mel, meeting Isaac, having a flashback, breaking out after curfew, shooting naked clickers, finding an Easter egg, killing some humans, a bit of hammer time, another flashback, another trophy, attempted ritualistic sacrifice, making friends, more hammer time, killing infected, going on a boat, killing infected, trophy pop, get to the aquarium, find Owen, another flashback, and we're done now. If you thought I rushed a bit through day one, then I'm sorry, because you're going to hate what happens next.
Make me a list. I'll go to the hospital.
After another 10 or so hours, we're finally back to the present day main story where Abby and Ellie's revenge stories have culminated and led to a final showdown. This fight actually is fantastic, and it reminds me of my favourite encounter in the first game. It ends with Abby having the strength to do what Ellie couldn't in leaving her and her friends alive and letting go of her vengeance.
Don't ever let me see you again.
Ellie of course takes this to heart, and we get a cute epilogue that ends with Ellie and her new family being cute and happy, and she definitely doesn't leave them because she's a fucking toddler, incapable of appreciating the mercy she was shown and the happiness it brought her. Anyway, we finished the game in just over 20 hours, including time lost to deaths, to grant the What I Had to Do trophy and the You Can't Stop This trophy for beating permadeath. And you know what, while we're here, let's just go ahead and pop those New Game Plus trophies too, which mainly just consisted of grabbing the last few collectibles and, miscellaneous trophies I'd missed the first time around. Now the reason we're skipping through this is because outside Tommy and Ellie ruining my shit, the vast majority of my grounded playthrough it looked like this. Because there's an accessibility option that makes you invisible when you crawl, and I was in no mood to extend the game by going through combat situations you can just avoid. Alright. For the last step of this video, I actually get to talk about the part of this game that I genuinely enjoyed a lot, in the No Return DLC. It's a roguelike mode that lets you play as 12 different characters, each with a randomized set of encounters, upgrades, and bosses. It's a great way to experience The Last of Us 2 in bite-sized chunks without getting bogged down in all the soul-crushing emotional baggage. What made it fun is the gameplay loop is super tight. There is no filler here. Every 30 to 45 minute run, it's just about powering up, grabbing weapons, and doing battle with whatever random enemies the game throws your way. This is really what I was hoping to experience with the main game, instead of aimlessly hunting for gas cans or running around Seattle searching for collectibles. I'm now in this streamlined mode where the only thing I need to focus on is blowing stuff up and collecting all the cool toys. This mode gives you an almost arcade-like feel to the whole experience, and the best part is resources aren't insanely scarce. On the contrary, they are thrown at you. You are no longer stressed about every single individual bullet. Instead, you're just upgrading your character, enjoying the progression, and most importantly, having fun. The trophy list here is a very simple completionist affair. Beat every boss, unlock every character, complete all their missions, and perform a handful of miscellaneous tasks. So there were a couple of these trophies that were a slight pain, like completing Ellie's challenges required buying one of every gun, and that's completely in the hands of RNG. That said, it really only took about 4 runs, so it wasn't horrible. The one that did cause me a significant amount of grief, however, was the appropriately rarest trophy in the game for completing a daily run on Grounded mode. So every day the game cycles through different characters and different randomized objectives, and you get to, go through the daily run. The huge difficulty from this is that you get 1 attempt at it per day. If you fail, you have to wait until tomorrow before you can have another crack. Because we're playing on Grounded, I have to admit this took a while. Also, have you noticed it's always the same enemy faction killing us, in the same way with a big sloppy kiss? Eventually, I was blessed to be able to play as Miss Molotov against human enemies, which granted us a success on the 5th attempt at this time-gated nightmare, granting us the last 2 trophies standing in the way of completion. So with that done, we loaded up the main campaign and grabbed our last base game trophy, and was then granted that most beautiful of unlocks in the 42nd Platinum Trophy on the account. And with that, we are done. The Last of Us Part 2 is 100% complete with the Platinum unlock. I can finally uninstall this game knowing it's not going to reach through the screen and bludgeon me with a guitar-fueled trauma session. If you made it this far, thank you so much. Whether you came for the trophies or just wanted to watch me emotionally unravel in real time, I appreciate it. If you're new here, there is a whole playlist down below where I do this sort of masochism on a frequent basis. Until then, keep your collectibles numbered and your save files backed up, and remember, when in doubt, just crawl, because you're invisible when you crawl. Ciao!